Hey everyone, welcome to Sidetrack Adventures. This is Steve. Today we're going to be exploring a highway that's said to be one of the most scenic in Southern California, but also one of the deadliest. A road that has history dating back centuries, and is also a rare place in one of the most populated areas of the state where you can get out into the wilderness. Today, we're going to be exploring the Ortega Highway. We are starting out today in California's Orange County, in the town of San Juan Capistrano. This intersection with Camino Capistrano is where the Ortega Highway begins. Or ends, I guess, depending on which way you're traveling. The Ortega Highway follows State Route 74 as it travels from San Juan Capistrano in the west, across the Santa Ana Mountains, and ends at Lake Elsinore in the east. The highway is named for Spanish explorer Jose Francisco Ortega, and fittingly it begins here at Mission San Juan Capistrano, as Ortega helped choose this site for the mission in 1775. Franciscan priests of the Catholic Church, backed by the Spanish Empire, established 21 missions in what is now California. The missions were really the backbone of European settlement in California. The first 8 missions were established by Father Junipero Serra, and this one was the 7th to be established. You really feel like you're stepping back into another era when visiting this mission. This building, which is kind of tucked away in the middle of the complex, is the Father Serra Chapel, which was built in 1782, making it the oldest building in California that's still in use. This is also the only building that still exists where Father Junipero Serra actually gave Mass. To me, the most interesting feature here at the mission are these ruins of the Great Stone Church. Construction began on this church in the late 1700s, and it was completed in 1806. Then in 1812, there was a major earthquake, and the church collapsed. Then, to make matters worse, in 1818, pirates sacked the mission as well. Luckily, they didn't destroy the mission, but they did take all its valuables and supplies. Here's a model of what the church would have looked like. Notice how it's in the shape of a cross. And here's what it looks like today. This really reminds me of some of the ruins you see in Europe. But then I remember this was actually designed by Europeans, people born and raised in Europe. I almost said built by Europeans, but the actual labor, of course, would have been mostly done by Native Americans. And here we could see once again how this church was built in the shape of a cross. When the church was standing, everything in here would have been painted. This must have been an impressive sight. Check out the design work on the arch's keystone. You could see here how the walls were built with rock and mortar and then a concrete facade. This building has some swallows' nests on it. This mission and San Juan Capistrano are also famous for swallows that return here every year. Local legend says they return on March 19th, though in reality they just show up whenever they want, and they usually leave around October. We could easily spend a couple hours here at the mission, but there's a lot more to see on the Ortega Highway, so it's time to hit the road. Alright, here we go. Unfortunately, we'll have to deal with stoplights and traffic for a bit, but it should clear up in a few miles. Like a lot of highways in the area, this road largely follows the route of an ancient Native American path. After founding Mission San Juan Capistrano in the 1770s, the Spanish would often follow this path up into the mountains to visit the hot springs at San Juan Creek. The hot springs would remain a popular tourist destination even after the Spanish left. When the Santa Fe Railroad reached San Juan Capistrano in 1888, visits to the hot springs greatly increased, but it was still about a 3-hour wagon ride to visit them, a drive that takes little more than 15 minutes today. With the coming of the automobile, demand began for a better road and also a shortcut across the mountains to Lake Elsinore, which was a long journey at the time. As early as 1903, people were talking about creating a road through here to link the two sides of the mountains. In 1913, Orange County did improve the stage road up to the hot springs to make it easier for automobiles to drive up, but since the rest of the proposed highway would be in Riverside County, the hot springs is where things ended for the next couple decades. Talks picked up on building the highway in the 1920s, but Riverside County really didn't see the value in it at first. Eventually, Orange County agreed to give Riverside County their portion of the state funding for the road, and Riverside got on board. The two counties formed a joint highway improvement district, and construction of the highway began in May 1929. The Ortega Highway name was proposed by Father O'Sullivan of Mission San Juan Capistrano. 17 miles of road needed to be built, 6 miles in Orange County and 11 miles in Riverside. Those 17 miles took years. Limited traffic was allowed on the road by mid-1932, and the official dedication ceremony was in August 1933, but the road wasn't fully finished until February 1934. Now we're going to be stopping at the Ronald W. Caspers Wilderness Park. Over 3 million people live in this county, but you wouldn't know it here. Well, I've now officially seen more ducks than people since stopping here. I should mention that we're at the day use area and we haven't seen any other people, but there were signs when we came into the park saying that all the campgrounds were full. So this place isn't completely empty. During the time that California was part of Mexico, this area was granted to be ranch land. In 1941, Eugene Starr purchased a little over 10,000 acres of land, and after he and his wife passed away in the 1960s, eventually some of the land was deeded to the National Audubon Society for use as a wildlife sanctuary. Then in 1973, the Orange County Board of Supervisors, under the direction of Chairman Ronald W. Caspers, voted to purchase the southern 5,500 acres of the ranch for use as a public recreation facility. On April 12, 1974, the Star Viejo Regional Park was opened as a primitive wilderness day use and camping facility. Ronald Caspers was lost at sea in 1974, and afterwards the park's name was changed in his honor. When you look at the brush and vegetation here, this is definitely mountain lion country. And there are signs all over the place warning you about mountain lions, and even the parking pass that you get when you enter the park has a warning about mountain lions on it. But most likely, if there are any mountain lions out here, they may see us, but we're unlikely to see them. At least I haven't seen any yet. A little more than 100 years ago, this area was also home to grizzly bears, and in fact, one of the last grizzly bears killed in California was killed not too far from here in 1908. And sadly, even though it's on the state flag, the last California grizzly died in the 1920s. You really don't feel like you're in Orange County when you're out here. It's hard to believe, but there are over 1 million people within 50 miles of here. I'm definitely more scared of this than the mountain lions. I'd love to spend more time hiking around here, but we've only traveled about 8 miles of the Ortega Highway so far, so we should probably get back on the road. Now we should run into less stoplights, the road will get more windy, and the scenery should pick up. Though, the last bit of the road is where you really get the epic views. We were just passed by a motorcycle. This road is always rated as one of the deadliest roads in the state, with quite a few fatalities on it, the majority of them motorcyclists. To be fair though, part of that is because this road is in a heavily populated area, so it gets more use than a lot of other similar windy roads. And I guess kind of adding to its reputation as a deadly road, the Ortega Highway has also been used by a number of serial killers as a place to dispose of their victims, which I'm sure isn't something the local Chamber of Commerce puts on their tourist brochures. And of course, because of all the accidents and the connections with serial killers, there are people who claim the road is haunted. We've now reached the Cleveland National Forest. Below us you could see some of the ruins from the San Juan Hot Springs. The hot springs were extremely popular in the late 1800s into the early 1900s, and you'd think with this highway opening in 1934, it would have brought even more people out to them, but the resort closed in 1936. The hot springs are now part of the Caspers Wilderness Park, and you do need permission to visit them. I believe the park does lead guided tours to them every once in a while. We are now crossing over the Serra Bridge, or the San Juan Canyon Bridge, which was built in 1929 during the construction of the highway. This is the only concrete arch bridge in Orange County, and the bridge is eligible for the National Register of Historic Places, but it hasn't been added yet. Now that we're up in the mountains, the scenery has definitely stepped it up a notch, and the drive's a lot more fun too. We've just crossed the county line, and now we're in Riverside County. We are passing the Upper San Juan campground on the left. It's been closed for a while, but in pre-Spanish times, this area was a campsite for the Hosherman people. Now it's one of the places on the highway that is said to be extremely haunted. So I guess if you're looking for a ghost, that place is as good as any. We've now stopped at the Ortega Oaks candy store, and this was one of the must-stop destinations on the highway. But I had heard that it might have closed, and unfortunately, it looks like it has. Let's take a look and see if there's any sign on the building. No, nothing, just a closed sign. Well, hopefully it could reopen in the future. It's really a shame about the candy store, but sadly it's not the only business in the area that's no longer around. We'll see signs of it in a bit, but there was a devastating forest fire in the area last year, and I'm sure that didn't help businesses up here either. By far the #1 attraction on the Ortega Highway is the Ortega Falls. And normally this parking area is packed with cars because of the number of people hiking to it. But because of the forest fire, the trail to the waterfall is currently closed. You can still see the waterfall from the side of the road, and I'll show some footage I took of it from a few years ago. It's actually a pretty short hike over to it, And there are very few places in Southern California where you can get to a waterfall with such minimal effort, and that's what makes it so popular. The area around the falls themselves didn't burn, but the area upstream did. The worry is that the creek could carry debris downstream and come over the waterfalls onto anyone playing in the water below. Not to mention flash flooding. When the trail reopens, the Ortega Falls are definitely worth checking out. Just don't expect to be alone. This place used to be packed with bikers on the weekend, but unfortunately, like the candy store, it's now closed as well. This is the California Wildland Firefighters Memorial. The reason this memorial is here, because about a mile from here, 7 firefighters were killed in the line of duty, fighting the Decker Canyon fire on August 8, 1959. And the Ortega Highway has been designated the California Wildland Firefighters Memorial Highway. And I have to say, this monument is really well done, especially with the pictures and everything on it. This wall surrounding the back of the memorial lists the names of various wildfires, and there's a number next to the names showing how many firefighters were killed fighting that fire. The Wildland Firefighters Memorial also has what has to be the saddest Smokey Bear poster I have ever seen. You have Smokey looking up to the heavens, questioning why, while these 2 little bears pray over a grave. Smokey's laying the guilt on thick with this one. And speaking of wildfires, this area was devastated by the airport fire in September and October 2024. It burned over 23,000 acres and destroyed 160 structures. Ironically, the fire was started by public works employees conducting fire prevention measures. They were moving boulders to prevent motorcycles from going into a heavy brush area, and the heavy equipment they were using started the fire. And now that we're on the other side of the mountains, we are getting some incredible views. We're coming up on a viewpoint now, but I'm not going to stop here. I'm going to keep going a little bit further because I think the best view is up ahead. And it's also a place where we can get a bite to eat. This is the Lookout Roadhouse. It opened in 1945 and has been owned by the same family since 1968. The food is pretty good, but the best reason to stop is right over here. Take a look at this view. That is the city of Lake Elsinore below us, which seems to get bigger every time I see it. And of course, the Lake Elsinore. And we got here just in time because it looks like they close in about an hour. They do have inside seating, but when there's a view like this, I want to sit outside. I picked the filet mignon tip sandwich, which I think I've picked every single time I've been here, and my wife got a breakfast burrito, even though it's almost 4 o'clock. About a week ago, those mountains in the distance, the tops of them were completely covered with snow. Now there's only a few patches here and there. The food and service was great and the view was amazing, but it's time to head down the hill and drive the last few miles of the Ortega Highway. Lake Elsinore was first seen by the Spanish in 1797, and they called it Laguna Grande. It was renamed Lake Elsinore after the town in 1888. There is supposedly a sea monster in the lake called Elsie, but since the lake has dried up a few times over the years, I have my doubts. Now that we've reached Lake Elsinore, that is the end of the Ortega Highway. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and we'll see you next week.